Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Neumaier, film critic for WOR Radio, and let's hear it for the mesmerizing and oh-so-human Anomalisa.
Yes.
This movie, forget about the silicone figures. I think that this movie is more human than so many other films out there. I really feel that. And let's have a big welcome for the film's co-directors, Duke Johnson and Charlie Kaufman. Hey guys, thanks. Welcome. Welcome and congratulations on the film. And by the way, the film which won the Grand Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival.
Oh.
All right, and Toronto, the critics poll winner at Toronto. I want to start off. We're going to talk about the mechanics and the making of the film in a moment, but I want to talk about the story and the script. Charlie, specifically, I know it was originally sort of a radio play in person done in 2005 at Carter Burwell's Theater for the New Ear in LA. But to me, the script, I mean, the tone of it, the feel of it, almost feels like a Raymond Carver short story or a Russell Banks short story. Where did this come from? What's the origins of it?
With Carter's thing, there was a play that I did, and there was a play that the Coen brothers did, and we wanted to do it in LA, but they were not available to travel there, so I had to write a second play. And I wanted to use 3 actors, and I was trying to figure out a way, it was a staged radio play, trying to figure out a way to use one actor to do a lot of voices. And I'd read about something called the Fregoli Syndrome, which is a syndrome in which you think everybody else in the world is one person. And I decided that was kind of an interesting sort of metaphor to use to explore. So that's where it initially came from. And then I decided, well, since there are 3 actors, there should be a surprising voice in there that you don't hear until you've been inundated with the other 2 voices. And so that's where it came from.
Jennifer Jason Leigh does an amazing job. She's so sweet. I kind of fell in love with her a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you see it happening as a movie even while it was on stage? Did you see it evolving in some ways in your mind from a stage reading to a movie?
No, in fact, I was kind of reticent when I was approached by these guys to do it as a movie because the idea of it was that the imagery would be created in the minds of the audience members, and so things like what was wrong with Lisa physically is never described in the play. It's only referred to, and I like the idea that different people in the audience would have different ideas, and what did it look like with all the people with the same voice. So when they approached me, I was kind of like, well, I have to throw away what I like about this thing. So, but I went ahead with it anyway, and as we sort of, got into it and started to work with it as an animation, I found new things. We found new things together, and it started to become its own thing, a separate thing, which I was very happy with.
Duke, how did you get involved? How did you see it originally as a stop motion performance, or how did you see it working through? Because there's ways that it could have gone. It could have gone animation. It could have gone a couple of different ways. How did you get involved?
Well, I was working at this studio called Starburns Industries, started by Dan Harmon and Dino Stamatopoulos in 2010. We started it to do the stop-motion animated episode of Dan's show Community. And we went on to do a couple other series and stuff, and we had reached a point in the studio where there was a lull, and we were looking for something to do next. And I was in Dino's office one day, and we were talking about ideas back and forth, and he said, well, I have this Charlie Kaufman script. And I was a huge fan of Charlie's. And so I was really excited about the prospect of, doing something Charlie Kaufman. And so I got the script and I read it, and, we were looking for things to produce in animation. So I read it with that in mind. But to me, because, this was written for that play, just as he described it, where it's just these people sitting on stage reading, there's no scene descriptions or anything, it's just dialogue. And so it could be anything. So it immediately lended itself to animation in my mind. And so I went back to Dino and was like, yeah, we have to do this. I've never seen anything in animation like this before. So we approached Charlie, and he said, yeah, if we can get the money to do it, we can do it. So we went out and we approached, some various places, and there was interest, a lot of interest in Charlie's writing, but they wanted to know if it could be maybe something episodic or if it could be broken up into 3 parts or something like that, and we immediately didn't want to mess with it. We thought it was like perfect, so we were trying to find a way that we could get it made and just kind of preserve the integrity of what it was. And Kickstarter was kind of new at the time. Somebody mentioned it to us, and so we gave it a shot and did a Kickstarter.
And as those 1,000+ names at the end attest to, you had a successful Kickstarter campaign of 1,070, right? Let's talk a little bit about the production of the film, because it's all the puppets are made out of silicone, and they're about a foot tall, right? They're 1/6 scale, with Michael being the biggest. Talk to us about that. So you had a couple of sets, and you had all these dolls that were Barbie size, I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah, it's 1/6 scale. It's the same scale as Barbie.
The universal Barbie measurement. So that's everything is 1/6 scale. And with Michael being the biggest, and then the faces. Talk to me about the faces. They're a 3D kind of face replacement version of actors' faces going on, sculpted, right?
Yeah. So what happened was we recorded the voices, and that was the first thing we did, was record the actors' performances, and they delivered this really beautiful. We were really moved by this performance that they gave, and so that was before we ever started thinking about what this was going to look like. So then our conversations about what this was going to look like was in preserving that sort of honesty and nuance, and that we had experienced in the voice records. So it just we looked at all different kinds of character designs, and it just kept going more towards this sort of realistic kind of feeling. So ultimately we settled on real people as the visual representations of the characters, and we had a sculptor, and she interpreted their look into the sculpt with a few adjustments. And then those were molded and cast, and the bodies are silicone, like you said. And then the faces, the sculpt was scanned into a computer, and digital sculptors manipulated the eyebrows and the mouths based on our models, saying certain lines and things, so that they could sculpt each one of the individual shapes. There's 150 from the eyes down and 150 from the eyes up. And so there's an infinite number of combinations of mixing those two pieces. Yeah.
I don't think I've seen anything like that before, honestly. There's moments when either his eyes will shoot to the right or left, or when they're in the elevator and Emily is sort of flirting with him a little bit. There's a level of nuance there I've never seen before. It was really extraordinary and groundbreaking. As you guys were watching it come together, did you sort of see it as something new?
We were trying for that, yeah.
Obviously the vocal performances by David Thewlis, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tom Noonan are all amazing. I also want to give a shout out though to Carter Burwell's score, which is so beautiful, and in some ways another character in the film. The suite that is going on as Lisa and Michael are in his bedroom is just really a heartbreaking and beautiful piece of music. There's also details that we don't even see, right? There's bits of clothing and all these little details on their costumes that are almost imperceptible, but are there for integrity. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, the costumes, so the costume designers were amazing. They fabricated all their clothes. As you can imagine, it's this big, and like Michael's jacket is lined and has like an inside pocket, and you probably don't notice, but little details like he always has a wallet in his back pocket that's actually there. And the other thing is all of this clothing has to be wired for animation, so it can't just be fabric, because it would flap around and chatter. So it has wires through the collars and down the sleeves, and especially the sex scene, like all of those clothes had like wire meshing and all kinds of crazy things within that. But you have to find ways. Even one strand of the thinnest wire is like too thick. If you put it between two pieces of fabric to hide it, it becomes too thick. You can tell that it's like not scale. So they have to. There's one shirt that has wire on one side, and then as he turns it swaps it out for another shirt with wire on the other side, and crazy tricks like that.
to go obviously from the faces and the clothing to the sex scene. What challenges were there for that? I mean, this is going to be one of the scenes that people talk about. It's such a sensitive, beautiful scene. It really is. It's very honest and very sensitive. It must have been very challenging to both write and kind of get the puppeteers, everyone on the same page, right, and to get to the same sort of emotional scale.
I mean, I think we knew from the very beginning that we didn't want that to be. I mean, there's humor in it, but we wanted the humor to come out of the interaction with the characters, not like making a joke that puppets are having sex. So a lot of effort was put into trying to make it like anything else in the movie between Michael and Lisa about their emotional interaction. And so, you know, and then of course there were references that we used to try to you know, establish it. It took 6 months to shoot that scene.
Wow. And actually, it took a long time to make the film altogether. It took each animator a day to make 2 frames of film, so essentially 48 seconds or so. Let's talk about that, right?
Each animator had a goal of 48 frames, 2 seconds a day.
2 seconds
but
a day.
They rarely hit it, so we shot an average of a minute a week.
And how many animators were there in total on the film?
At any given time animating, there was a maximum of 15, but it was usually more like 12 or 13
Okay, now, all right, so my math is bad, but that comes out to a lot of hours for animators, right, to work on those.
I mean, if it's 90 minutes long and a minute a week, it's somewhere around 90 weeks. But then there's stuff we shot that, you know, there's a few things we did second takes on and stuff. But, you know, it's 2 years of constant shooting. I think we took, you know, a few days off for Christmas, and that was it.
Wow, that's amazing. So 2 years it took you to make this. Were there adjustments in the script, Charlie, as things went, or as the actors came back from 2005, the trio of them, and as things went on? Did you change anything?
I mean, the script is pretty much as it was in the play. We added things because it was now visual, so any visual joke in the thing, for the most part, the buttons on the phone, you know, the guy masturbating, were added. In terms of dialogue and stuff like that, we had to swap out My Man Godfrey for Casablanca, which was in the play because we couldn't get the rights to Casablanca, and also the original song that Lisa sings is "My Heart Will Go On" from Titanic, which was the reaction of the audience in the theater when she sang it, but we couldn't get the rights for that, so we were able to get the rights for her.
Well, the Cyndi Lauper song works out perfectly, obviously.
We were really glad, actually, in retrospect, that it ended up being that.
In fact, you're sort of thinking she's going to choose Time After Time, and in fact, no, she goes for Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which ends up having more resonance. Yeah. We mentioned all the voice performances, but Tom Noonan especially. How did you come to Tom? He's obviously known for a lot of extraordinary performances, both vocally and non-vocally in his directorial work. But his monotone is terrific, and then he gets a little bit flirty as Emily. He's really amazing. How did you come to Tom?
I mean, I just tried to cast actors that I really liked, and I had started a kind of an email correspondence with Tom because I'd seen his movie What Happened Was years ago, and I really loved it, and I wrote to him, and so this is the first time we worked together. It was before Synecdoche, and I thought that Tom has a very distinctive voice, and I wanted a voice that would be recognizable throughout all these different characters he played, and there's also something kind of comforting and at the same time menacing about Tom's voice. So it served my purpose. Yeah. But mostly I just really liked him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a creepy little child voice, which is always good to have. Yeah. And what about Jennifer Jason Leigh, who, as I mentioned earlier, is just extraordinary. She gives such a very it's a very fine balance because you can't go too far towards one end or the other with Lisa. She can't be so naive and so unworldly that we're turned off by her, but she has to be just sort of girlish enough that we sort of fall for her a little bit, right?
Again, I just cast Jennifer because I think she's amazing, and I wanted to, you know, I asked her if she wanted to do it, and I didn't know her at the time, and she said yes. But yeah, Jennifer loves that character. She loves Lisa. She has said it for years now, and she was really excited to get to do it again. And I think that's what comes through, is that it resonates with her for some reason, and so I think it resonates in the movie.
And specifically with Jennifer, a little more than the other two, the physical performance is very much Jennifer's as well. A lot of we filmed the actors and their performances while they were delivering, doing the voice records, and their movements infused some of the performances. But specifically Jennifer, for almost every scene, we looked at what she did there.
Translated. And David's voice performance is even before we really get to know Michael, an exhausted. Like you can just hear the exhaustion in his voice, right?
Yeah. Again, I saw him in Naked and wanted to work with him since then. So.
And just one last point of just the technical aspect of it. Was there footage that either couldn't be used? I would imagine that also in most of the film is in long shot or medium shot because we want to be able to sort of see this world. You guys avoided a lot of close-ups, obviously deliberately, right?
Yeah, I mean we wanted to shoot it like a movie, and so we shot it like a movie. I think the close-ups are really, I love the close-ups in this movie, and I think that they pay off especially because there are so few of them. But when you get to see the texture of the material that the faces are made out of, there's something really satisfying about that to me. Tactile.
No, the whole scope of it as you're watching it, like there's so many things to look at in so many ways, and then so many things to feel. And the irony is, whereas everybody is the same to Michael Stone, I think the reaction to every audience